Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the end of week 2 here at Flux Motorsports Championships. We're, of course, heading up the GT3 Championship this time around. For those of you that can't recognise the circuit, we're at the relatively new Circuit of the Americas track. Going to prove very difficult for some, and I don't think it's going to prove easy for any. For those of you that don't recognise the voice by now, I'm Murphy, and I'm joined alongside my very good friend Alex in the box. Good evening, Alex. Are you there?
Good evening, Murphy. Wow, what a treat we're in for tonight.
Yeah,
more American madness
circuits here in the in the badass land of Texas. And they love the racing. It's not usually GT3s, but I'm pretty sure that they'll take anything that's got a bit of grunt behind it. And you see here, T. Scott first out there in the qualification session. 18 minutes and 45 seconds remaining of this one. 20 minutes of qualifying to go, followed by 45 minutes of racing here at Circuit of the Americas. And just to give you a bit of an idea, the fastest lap in our practice session had just been set by eMotorsports with a 2 minute 7 seconds .739, so that's roughly the ballpark where we're looking this evening. I think you might have some news on the weather, is that right, Alex? What's our weather report looking like?
So, unlike last week, it's going to be a dry race this time, so they can see cycling of light clouds and clear, which the drivers are probably going to hate. It's going to heat up their tyres, big style. So maybe we'll see some pit stops and the guys running the softs. The guys with the hards are probably just going to slug it to the end and be warm. But this track is a silent killer for tyres, so definitely want to keep an eye out on.
We were having a conversation just before the broadcast started about how the tyre temperatures are affected. I'll just bring up the map here so we can just have a little discussion through it. So we're just coming up to turn 1 now on board with T. Scott. Pretty tricky, almost hairpin up the hill onto a tabletop and then back down, and this is where the tyre torture just starts to begin. We've got a section of S's here that if you tune into the premium open-wheeled championship, you'll see them taking it flat, not so much in these GT3s. They're going to have to try and balance that throttle as best they can, try and not torch the tyres. Then on the approach here, through turn 7 up to turn 8, around this long right-hander into a medium left, and that sort of, here comes the brief respite on tyres. You're just going to have to try and make sure that you don't scrub them as little as possible. Try and get those temps down up to the second hairpin. Quite easy to run wide, so there could be some slowdown penalties coming our way, especially when you've got 2 or 3 cars wide, which is quite possible on a track this wide. Then onto the longest straight of the circuit, on the run up to turn 12. We're going to see big braking as late as possible. Looks as though T. Scott actually nailed that, maybe just a little bit too much as we see his rear end coming away. And then comes the second tortuous tyre section through turns 13, 14, 15 and 16. Some really technical corners coming through here, and if your tyre temperatures haven't soared too much, you're about to come up to a really quick section of right-handers. It's marked down as 2 different corners on the cornering numbers, but it is pretty much just one trajectory that you want to take around the right-hand side, then deep onto the brakes into the second to last turn, and then foot to the floor into the braking zone of the final corner, and that will be your lap of Circuit of the Americas. So we've just had a quick run through there along with T. Scott. In the meantime, eMotorsports has gone top so far with a 2 minute 19. That's since being knocked straight off by T. Scott on that lap that we were just following him round on. It's still a little bit of time away from what we'd expect. In fact, we'll jump away now and you can see Luke Snipes now jumping up into top spot in that Porsche 911 in the GT Omega Thrustmaster Porsche. Linga Bazinga and Snarling Bongo, the two Dutch besties, now topping out the qualification and topping out and making up the front row with 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Well, that is very short-lived as Fast AF Gamer now rockets that M6 all the way into pole position. So it's all going on here now that they're starting to get these laps in, and it's quite a crucial point that because the lap is so large here at Circuit the Americas, they're going to have less qualifying times ahead of them. So, I mean, what are your predictions in these very early stages, Alex?
I'd like to see Fast AF keep it on pole, to be fair. He had a bit of a shocker last time out at Daytona. Definitely not representative of the sort of pace that he can uphold and keep. And if he can do well here, there's a chance he could probably get his championship run back on track. So I'd like to see him do well. He's a good lad, puts the work in, definitely. And he'll know every inch of this track, no doubt, by the time we come to the green lights going out. Obviously you've got Bruce, who always goes strong just about everywhere, but is in that sort of odd choice Mercedes, so not so sure how that's going to perform around here. And then the two Dutch guys, Linga and Snarling, behind them, who also showed great pace last week. So the top four currently at the minute, definitely the four to be reckoned with. You've got Immortalis sitting down at 11th. I'd expect him to jump up a little bit, and Giacomo as well. So still, I think, a bit of bedding in to happen here. Little guys finding their rhythm, getting their heads down, getting focused.
It's worth noting that Luna Zodiac's currently sat 5th in the running order. He's not too far away as well, just sat above Tibby, Blankfile and Luke Snipes. So Luna Zodiac waking up only moments ago. He is an Australian driver, so it's early doors for Luna Zodiac at the moment, but running all right. Looks as though he's wiped the sleep from his eye, and looks pretty keen here for a Circuit of the Americas. As Alex was just mentioning, as we see Dr. Potford there facing the wrong way as BruceLaw goes past him. BruceLaw actually running in the Mercedes-Benz SLS as opposed to the AMG, which is subtle differences that you'll notice, but it's sort of the baby brother of the AMG. Most drivers, in fact every other driver on the grid inside of Mercedes, opting for the AMG. BruceLaw wanted to set himself a bit of a challenge and run with what was a previous favourite of his in the red SLS number 150. Linga Bazinga and Snarling Bongo back out there, but as Alex also mentioned, Fast AF Gamer had an absolute shocker last week, finishing 11th in the end. Got wrapped up in a couple of nasty moments at Daytona, and it kind of summarised the general running of Daytona for the week. We also had some frightful action into turn 1 in the GT1 race as well. But just to have a quick run through whilst we can of the current standings inside the GT3. If you missed it in our social media posts, be sure to follow us on social media and you'll be able to check out all of this information before the race. But BruceLaw does sit top of the standings with 36 points, and then Dr. Potford 6 points behind in second. Snarling Bongo is 9 points behind BruceLaw in third, so it's very closely contested from the very start here. Tibby in 4th place, followed by Blankfile in 5th, Immortalis in 6th, and Luke 42 in 7th. Giacomo is in 8th place with Green Gaming, who is absent today and will be deducted 5 points for being AWOL. And then Fast AF Gamer finds himself in 10th place, followed by Stoltz, T-Scott, the best gamer, Linga Bazinga, who had a bit of a nightmare, and Luna Zodiac and Old Smoky. So Linga Bazinga will have a point to prove after his disappointing finish last week at Daytona. We can see him currently qualied in 3rd place provisionally, so we'll have to wait and see what happens after the end of this 10-minute counter. In the meantime, if you're watching us live, please let us know what your predictions are and whereabouts you're watching this race in the world. We'd love to hear from you.
And while we're there, just in the YouTube comments, we've got the normal Giacomo mob showing up in force as per usual, showing their support for Giacomo, currently sitting in 10th. We've got Jack Jimenez, our social media guys, out here showing some love, and Team Angie as well is from Curb Clipping, showing support for, I'm going to guess it's for Blank File and for BruceLaw as well. So welcome everyone, thanks for coming and watching. Let us know your race predictions in the comments.
Nice to see you, Team Angie. We're watching quite a few of the ones usually out there supporting BruceLaw and Casey Redwood, but I'm pretty sure that there's going to be support going out there for BruceLaw and Blank File tonight. Currently though, doesn't look as though anybody's able to knock Fast AF off that provisional podium spot. 2 minutes 5 seconds, .36 the time to beat. However, most drivers now returning back onto track. It's going to take them a couple of minutes, well over a couple of minutes, to do their outlap. So it's one of those ones where a quick pit to change the tyres or to get some damage repairs actually costs you quite a lot inside these 20-minute qualification sessions. It's going to hurt you in terms of time. And we see Snarling Bongo not happy, comes back into the pits and he goes straight back out again. We've got BruceLaw ahead of him as well. Let's have a look over to two of the drivers that haven't yet set a time. We've got Stoltz in the McLaren and Old Smoky as well. Just have a look at which car Old Smoky's in on my pit notes.
He's in the Audi R8, I believe.
Is it an R8?
He's
is it?
Opted for the Hot Wheels livery as memory serves, which is quite fitting for around here.
Most definitely. You can see probably the reason why Stoltz hasn't yet set a time, just running a little bit wide, and the race director here will punish you for running wide over the track limits, especially on your last lap. So that's probably the current and next lap invalidated as he's about to come across the line. Let's just have a look. Yep, no time set this time for Stoltz. Could also be Old Smoky suffering with the same fate as well.
Yeah, we did have a few drivers on the Discord let us know that the final corner is an absolute nightmare for track limits. I think it's really harsh with how much curb you're allowed to use compared to the rest of the track. And obviously it's catching Stoltz and Old Smoky out, so not long left for them to get their eye in and get a lap down. They've probably got another 2 serious goes at it if they're lucky. So yeah, they're going to have to get a move on sharpish.
You can see here we're currently tracking BruceLaw around. I think that's Linga Bazinga that's behind him as well in the grey Merc. We just saw Luna Zodiac moving alongside to allow the guys out on a hot lap, or we're assuming a hot lap, setting them through, and that's BruceLaw giving up on that one. In fact, it wasn't Linga Bazinga, it was actually Snarling Bongo. So Snarling Bongo in the number 84 liveried AMG. Worth noting as well that we did have a couple of Porsches on the circuit last week at Daytona. It's not going to be the case this time around. The only Porsche remaining is the number 90 of Luke Snipes'. Best Gamer has since switched to a number 75 Project Cars AMG, and Tibby has switched over to an Audi R8. So a few car changes in action there. The drivers are allowed 1 car change per season in each championship before it will then cost them 50 championship points. So it's set up to make sure that drivers don't be changing the cars just to suit the circuit. So that'll be Best Gamer and Tibby's car choice null and void. They won't have any more for the rest of the season unless they're willing to lose 50 championship points. So 5 minutes remaining now inside this championship qualifier for race 2 here at Circuit of the Americas. Fast AF Gamer is still in pole position with BruceLaw alongside him in row 1. Blank File in 3rd with Linga Bazinga in 4th. And then we're following round Snarling Bongo at the moment. Just coming through the final turn, I believe. Let's bring up the map. Oh, I beg your pardon. No, he's just coming out through the hairpin of turn 11. Unfortunately, this circuit a little bit too new for corner names, so unfortunately you're going to have to deal with us spouting out some numbers at you. We will maybe try and leave on the track map at certain parts during the race, just so that you can get your bearings.
What is worth noting is that Fast AF is leaving it late if he's going to do another lap. I think this could be a one and done. He's happy with the gap that he's got to Bruce and Blankfile. With only 4 minutes left, he's sort of going to need to leave it now, really, to get a good run in it, clear the traffic and have some clean air.
Linga Bazinga's just put in a really hot lap indeed for the 2 minutes 6 seconds .4, and that's him pretty much done. I think. I don't think we're going to see another one from him, but I think you might be right as well. I think Fast AF Gamer has one and done. I'm not surprised either with a 2 minute 5. It's a lot quicker than what we've seen in practice, and he's really just pulled it out of nowhere, I believe. He's going to struggle if he is in pole position in that BMW. It doesn't seem to get up to speed quite as well as some of the Mercs that will be surrounding him. That being said, he is going to have the inside line, and he knows his competitors as well. So we've seen it plenty of times from Fast AF Gamer. Manages to just hold his own. Uses his brains more than the throttle pedal and the brunt of the engine, and he somehow manages to get through unscathed. So hopefully we'll have a nice clean entry into turn 1. It is a very tricky corner, a bit of a blind one as you go up the hill onto the tabletop and then straight into a hairpin, as we see BruceLaw making a very rare occurrence of a mistake. Spins that car around, and he's not going to be happy about that. He's going to try and keep the temperature into the tyres and get another lap done in the remaining 3 minutes. That being said, looks as though Fast AF Gamer and Linga Bazinga are back out on track. Might just have enough time to try and get one more lap in.
This looks like it's a race fuel run. So obviously the guys will qualify with as little as fuel as possible to make the car super light to get the fastest time. And a situation like this where Fast AF and Lingo have sort of done the best they can. They use these last couple of minutes knowing they're not going to get another fast lap in. They'll fill the car back up with race fuel, as it's going to feel different. It's going to feel heavier, a bit more sluggish coming into the corners. So when the race starts, they're a bit more attuned to what they're going to expect. It's a smart move, really, especially from Fast AF, who's going to have a big job into turn 1. He's going to want to know what that car's doing underneath him.
It actually looks as though Fast AF isn't running with race fuel. It was a good spot though to see Linga Bazinga with 70 odd litres worth of fuel in there. It looks as though Fast AF Gamer is running with maybe 12 litres at the start of this lap, maybe a little bit more, maybe 13 litres, but
he's going to gun it again.
As though he's just having a little bit of a look in, maybe just trying to keep his eye in, maybe getting a little bit restless, sat in the pits. But yeah, Linga Bazinga is out in race trim, so looking to make sure that he's on the ball in terms of braking distances, braking points, and feeling the momentum of the car when it is fully laden with fuel. A question from Tina Angie. Oh, not really a question, just a congratulations to the racer who won last night's race at Monza. Obviously watching the stream that I was as well. That racer was actually Immortalis, who's currently running in 4th position tonight in the GT3s, just behind BruceLaw at the moment, ahead of Starling Bongo and Blankfile. But good competitive race, that one. Currently not broadcast, but I think both myself and Team Angie were watching BruceLaw's live stream of the event just to try and keep on top of what was going on. Unfortunately, it did look as though there was quite a lot of controversy in terms of stewards' inquiries that have come in with that one. Also, quite a lot of controversy last week at Daytona in the GT3s. The stewards' inquiries are all resolved, and the standings have been adjusted, but quite a few licence points going out to 1 or 2 drivers. A few little slap on the wrists as well, so not really much harm or foul. But 17 seconds remain, so the drivers are just going to be coming up to their final laps now. We're going to focus our attention onto Immortalis, who is on for a hot lap. BruceLaw is also doing the same, but Immortalis looks as though he's got one more left as he crosses over the start-finish line. So he is going to have another bite of the cherry as it is. BruceLaw has since come into the pits. Let's have a look over to Snarling Bongo, see how he's doing at the moment. Just wait for his sector times to appear, but it does look as though he's run ever so slightly wide, so that might be an abandoned lap this time around. Dr. Potford was running behind, but it looks as though he's since returned to the pits. Oh, in fact, I beg your pardon, it's Blankfile running just behind in the Z4. Blankfile, nice easy one to spot, and a familiar face to BruceLaw from the Curb Clipper days, and very distinguishable in that bright yellow and red liveried Z4. The only driver to operate the Z4. We have seen it used previously by, I think it was Alright Turkish a couple of seasons ago, but he couldn't get it to work. I think it's a firm favourite of Blankfile, but he's going to struggle with it on this sort of circuit, I believe. Quite a long GP circuit, and the Z4 is potentially lacking in a bit of pace. But he has moved up to 4th position that last lap around, so good going from Blankfile. Snarling Bongo looks as though he's finished. Let's have a look at eMotorsports. We'll bring the map back up just to see whereabouts he is. So he's just coming into this very tricky final sector. Long right-hander here, filled with a couple of different apexes. Looks as though he's got his line absolutely bob on there for the second half of it, as it brings him out into the braking zone of the second to last. Keeps the curb beautifully, hitting that apex. And let's see what he's getting up to on the last one. You see him really throwing it in there. Very late braking and a big chuck. Looks as though it's nice and clean, but is it going to be worthy of a change of position? 6th in the standings so far. Doesn't look as though it is from eMotorsports. So let's have a look at the final running. Fast AF Gamer takes pole position and the crucial bonus point. He actually went quicker than he did in the lap that was holding off all drivers previous to it. I also, eat my words, eMotorsports, that last lap around, did enough to knock Linga Bazinga and BruceLaw down one further position. So he moves into 2nd place to make up the front row. Linga Bazinga falls back into the 2nd row with BruceLaw alongside him. And then Blankfile and Snarling Bongo in the 3rd row. Dr. Potford does enough for 7th, with Tibby in his new Audi R8 in 8th place. Lunar Zodiac in 9th, with Survivor in his new AMG alongside him in 10th. And then Giacomo in 11th. It'll be a disappointing start from him, but let's see what he can do as the race progresses. And then Luke Snipes in 12th place in the final remaining Porsche on the grid. Old Smokey in 13th, quite a bit off the pace, along with T. Scott and Stoltz in 14th and 15th. And that makes up the grid for tonight's race. As we mentioned earlier, it's going to be 45 minutes of action. We're going to have performance, impact and damage enabled as ever, and tyre wear is accelerated. The drivers are now going to have 2 minutes to set the cars up ready in for this one. And as you can see on the run-up to Circuit of the Americas, Fast AF Gamer starts off on the left-hand side, so he has got the inside line going into turn 1, but there's a couple of different ways that you can attack this this unusual opening to a GP circuit. I don't think eMotorsports is going to be held back too much. He's going to have a lot of speed gain, I think, in the Ferrari. It's just whether or not he can hold off the Mercedes behind. So, what are your predictions going into this one, Alex? Are you still hoping for a good showing from Fast AF Gamer?
I am, and he's done me proud there in qualifying. Nearly 1.6 was it off of 2nd place, so he managed to extend his lead. So instead of opting for a race run, went quicker again, just sort of showing he's got more. Hopefully he can hang on to it. As we said earlier, he sort of got pushed around a little bit in Daytona and lost out big time. So good to see he's come back strong. eMotorsports, a great lap from him. Good to see him up the front, and it's nice to see it all mixed up a little bit. So yeah, I think Fast AF to take it. I think Luna will do well. I think I can see him grabbing another couple of spaces, sort of somewhere in the mid-pack. And then sort of towards the back, sort of 12th down to Stoltz is going to be a good battle as well. Those guys are sort of similarly matched, so should be good action throughout.
Now coming up to just the final 20 seconds of Tinker Time. They'll be just making the final adjustments to tyre pressures, fuel and race strategy, and then we're about to get underway here.
What about you, Merv? What's your predictions?
You know what, I actually think, although he's done very well off the bat, I don't want to put too much on his shoulders with Fast AF Game. I actually think eMotorsports could do quite well. And we're just on board with Blankfile now as they're off and underway in that run-up. So it looks as though eMotorsports has opted for the inside line. It looks as though we've got Fast AF Gamer going through the middle and eMotorsports is taking the lead straight away. So it was an inspired move from eMotorsports there. Moved straight up to the inside, recognised that that Fast AF Gamer was going through the middle, and he then takes first position away from him in the opening stages of this race. So it's eMotorsports leading Fast AF Gamer with BruceLaw behind them, with Linga Bazinga in 4th, Blankfile in 5th and Dr. Potford in 6th. Looks as though all drivers are away pretty cleanly. It does look as though Luna Zodiac's taking a bit of a drop down. He did start in 9th place, I think. He's now in 15th, so maybe just making a bit of a meal of the first corner. But the rest of the drivers look to be getting away pretty much scot-free. You've just seen Luke dropping down the running order there as our cameraman just tries to wake up and catch hold of him.
Day off.
So yeah, it looks as though we've missed whatever action it was, but I think Luke was just overtaken by Tibby in the Audi R8, so bit of a change there. Let's jump onto the chase cam of Giacomo and have a look at our front runners. Looks as though Blankfile just making a move there up the inside of Linga Bazinga. Linga Bazinga's rear end just getting a little bit messy, and we can see Dr. Potford there having a little look up the inside. Is he going to make that one stick as they run through the section of S's? He's got his work cut out for him, but as they just come together there, I think it was just the loss of a couple of wing mirrors maybe, but both drivers look to have remained in control of the cars until we see a huge collision by Linga Bazinga and Giacomo. Let's have a look. Did Linga Bazinga come off pretty bad? He definitely got knocked off and he's going to fall behind the rest of the cars ahead. It looks as though we've got contact as well between, I think it was Survivor and oh no, it wasn't Survivor. Who was it?
It was Snarling and Old Smoky.
And Old Smoky, yeah, you're quite right. The white liveried R8 of Old Smoky looked as though we just caught the rear end of Snarling Bongo, and it looks as though they're both away. Now the driver opting for the pit, whether or not they could have made it or not is another story. Let's get back up to what's going on in the front.
Fast AF or Bruce has gone round?
Yeah, it looks as though we've got potential contact between Fast AF and Bruce. Looks as though Fast AF is actually waiting for the championship leader of BruceLaw at the moment, who's looking to just wait until the traffic gets around before he can get. Oh, he has to go the long way as well.
It's worth noting that is in our rules as part of the track etiquette. If you've knocked someone around, it's always good to wait and give the place back. So, good sportsmanship from Fast AF. Shame to see him having another week of it, really.
Yeah, and BruceLaw won't be happy about it either, despite the good track etiquette. Both drivers going from the very front of the running order here to the very back. Both of them do have the pace to try and get back up and around some of the back markers, but it's not going to be easy. 41 minutes remaining, and it comes down to the same thing that we mentioned earlier on in quali, where there aren't that many laps, where we've seen quite a few other races throughout this season in all championships. They've been quite short firing. We've had plenty of laps going on. It's not going to be the case at the Circuit of the Americas. Big track, this one. So we're going to see a lot less laps, and they're going to have the work cut out to try and get ahead of the drivers ahead of them. We will keep our eye out on Fast AF Gamer and BruceLaw. I do suspect that BruceLaw might be suffering with a little bit of damage, because Fast AF Gamer has since overtaken him, and it was quite a big lead that he gave BruceLaw. In fact, maybe not. Just seen BruceLaw retake 14th position down in the running order. We are currently tracking round Tibby, and that is Luke Snipes behind him. Just behind we've got T-Scott and then TTV Giacomo, who also looked as though he got involved in some nasty business a little bit earlier on. But Tibby, Dutch driver, he's also running pretty well at the moment. He'll be excited about the prospect of a top 4 finish, I'm sure. Just needs to try and hold off those 4 drivers that are keen behind him. Now it looks as though Old Smoky, we saw a big collision go on. He's coming into the pits along with Lunar Zodiac, so that's going to hurt them quite a bit. I think a lot of drivers are going to be going for a no-stop strategy here today. So that's going to set them back quite a bit if that strategy pulls off for the field ahead of them. Let's jump back over to Luke Snipes, who's trying to get past Tibby. He's got T-Scott behind him and Giacomo not too far away either.
Just saying, what a great effort from Luke, really, to stay out of trouble, keep his nose clean, and he's reaping the benefits of it now, sitting in 5th, with Tibby just in front. I don't see him be able to catch the top 3 unless, you know, more chaos happens, but still be a good showing for him and a good sack full of points.
Well, I think we mentioned, I think we might have just had a bit of action behind. Let's have a look. I just heard a clutch drop and an engine almost stall, and I do believe it was the might have been the AMG of T-Scott. Oh, sorry, that's a McLaren, isn't it? It is indeed the K-Pax number 9 McLaren of T-Scott. I've got a feeling that something just happened with him and Giacomo coming into that corner. Just heard a big drop of revs, although the car was almost about to stall. But yeah, worth mentioning, Luke Snipes didn't have the best of qualification runs, and as Alex has just pointed out, he's kept his nose clean. He's getting more and more used to that Porsche as the weeks progress, and whilst it might not be the most dynamic car on the circuit, he's currently making it work for him, and we're seeing big improvements week in, week out, no matter which championship he's running in. So fair play to the young lad. He's definitely upping his game, and he's starting to get a lot more comfortable in all of the cars that he's running in. It looks as though he's getting closer and closer to Tibby. I think it's only going to be a matter of time till we see him making the moves. So Immortalis continues to lead this one. I did suspect that he was going to get himself ahead, but Blankfile in 2nd, running really well in the Z4 from the Curb Clippers driver. And then 3rd with Dr. Popford. Now let's not forget that Dr. Popford is actually 2nd in the championship standings so far. Bit of a sort of silent assassin, really. You won't see much of him in quali, but when it comes to the race day, once again, like we've just mentioned with Luke Snipes, keeps his nose clean, avoids all issues, and just seems to be in the right place at the right time at the moment, Alex, and getting himself way ahead of the rest.
That's it, and it's the similar sort of scenario to Luke. He just keeps himself out of trouble and stays wickedly consistent. It's not often you see him making a mistake or getting himself into trouble. And in these sort of lengths of race, that can sort of pay dividends, really. As we've seen already in the first sort of 10 minutes or so, how quickly the grid can turn around on you, and you've got to be there at the end to win. So, yeah, I suspect that gap, 8 seconds, I reckon that will start to come down towards the end of the race. He's a patient guy, he knows that there's a long way to go. But no, we wait and see. It's on Immortalis, really. If he can keep pushing as hard as he can and keep the tyres going, then that's got to be the strategy, really. You don't want to give anything back to Blankfile or Dr. Bofford.
You can see that Immortalis seems to have settled into his race pace at the moment. Currently set in 2 minutes and 7 seconds, in the high region of that, nearly 2 minutes and 8 on the money. Blankfile's similarly settled into some form of a race pace. So we're trying to balance the tyres as much as ever. You're not going to see the same sort of pace in the race as you are in quali. But we'll just be trying to settle into this one now, make sure that he maintains that lead. In fact, he is making slow gains on Blankfile each time, so Immortalis will be licking his chops with the prospect of a win, and that was TTV Giacomo that we saw just losing the front end, catching it once again and getting very acquainted with one of the walls here, and it looks as though Survivor was just about to do the same. Rear end of that AMG looking very slippery indeed. He's not had that much time to play with the setup of the car, but he is currently running in 7th place. Giacomo dropping down to 8th and heading into the pits for some damage repairs after that contact.
And that is where he lost it on the opening lap as well and collected, I believe it was Linger. So obviously that long right-hander gave him a bit of trouble. And the other thing as well, Luke has actually got around Tibby. just missed it. But looks like he's got round the start, and that should put out a decent gap on him too.
Yeah, so Tibby's fallen down into 5th place. Luke Snipes now up into 4th, and with Fast AF Gamer and BruceLaw getting involved in a bit of argy-bargy in the opening couple of laps here. That's really opened up the field quite a bit. We've since seen recovery drives from BruceLaw. He's currently 38 seconds behind the leader, but he's in 8th place as we see Luke Snipes there losing the rear of that Porsche, and that's going to allow Tibby to come back on through. So he falls back in line, not much lost there, just a little bit of momentum from Luke Snipes, and he remains 16 tenths behind.
Who's braver into the braking zone?
He's
Luke.
brave, and it's worked out for him as well. Great move from Luke Snipes. He's going to be challenged once again around the outside, but I don't think that's going to work from Tibby. And yeah, Luke's got it done under the braking. It's what we like to see. He who dares. And yeah, Luke maintains that 4th position. And this is the great thing about racing now. No matter what's been going on earlier on in the race, we're probably likely to see a change in mentality now from Tibby, who's going to be gripping that steering wheel a little bit harder. He's going to be pushing himself that little bit further, and that's when mistakes start to get made if you're not careful. You can see him getting mighty close there. Looks as though he's just making a move up the inside. He's not going to get that done on the final corner. That is not where you want to be. So Luke holds onto it for this lap, that's for sure. To the chase cam, let's have a look at the difference that we get on the run up into turn 1. This is where we saw eMotorsports make that just inspired move up to the inside, maybe got onto the brakes a little bit earlier and just managed to take that place away from Fast AF Gamer. You saw there Luke Snipes just getting a little bit loose under braking just as it reaches the top of that tabletop and the incline starts to fall away. You see there big dabs of brakes from the Audi R8. The Audi R8's got so much speed in the S's compared to the way that Luke Snipes just took them. And unfortunately, the way that Tibby had to brake to make sure that he missed contact. Oh, as we see Luke Snipes going around, and I think that's going to be a big loss this time around. Yep, he loses the car altogether, so he's going to have to climb that mountain once again. However, he is still in 5th place with 4 seconds ahead of his nearest rival. Let's get back on over to Survivor. He's currently running in 7th. Looks as though he's about to challenge T-Scott in the McLaren.
Looks like Bruce is lurking in the background there as well. He'll be looking to get these two out of his way as quickly as possible as he's sort of on a march back to the front.
Yeah, I mean, he's really on the charge, isn't he, BruceLaw? You can see him. He's currently just a couple of seconds away from these guys, but he's making that time up really quickly. In fact, let's go over to BruceLaw. Let's jump on board with him and let's have a look what he can see as he's hunted down those cars. He'll be really raring to get himself ahead of them and then maybe get himself up into congestion for the top 3, hoping to try and recover for a podium. It'll be a huge hurdle, but it's not unheard of, as he looks as though he's got one step closer as T-Scott takes a tumble off the circuit. So BruceLaw moves up into 7th place, Fast AF Gamer in 10th place behind him. So Survivor is the next one on the list for BruceLaw. Whilst we've got a bit of a break, with this being the only action on there, let me tell you a little bit about what we've got coming up into week 3 here at Flux Motorsport's 2nd season. So, as ever, we'll be starting the week off with the touring cars. You see BruceLaw on the big drag here up into turn 1, so it looks as though BruceLaw is making his way up into 6th place now. Yep, and that is job done from BruceLaw. Great driving from him on the recovery. But yeah, as mentioned, Tuesday will be our Touring Car Championship brought to you live and direct on our YouTube channel on Tuesday, where you'll be able to see my co-commentator here challenge for his current championship lead around Daytona Road Course. And we do promise you that this will be the last time this season that Daytona Road Course will be featured.
It won't be on next season either, I promise.
It definitely won't be on next season, and it probably won't feature on the season after that, after the amount of antics that have gone on. But keep your eye on the weather. So far this week we've had 2 wet races around Daytona Road. If it's going to be a third, hopefully the touring cars will be able to handle it. But yep, we'll be live with the touring cars on Tuesday. You'll be able to join me in the box for that one. However, Alex will be fighting off all of his closest rivals for the championship lead in that one. Then brings us to Thursdays in the GT1s. We've just got the latest GT1 race at Daytona Road course uploaded, so be sure to head on over to the GT1 playlist on our YouTube channel to make sure that you catch that one. The highlight video will be coming soon if you don't want to watch the entire race. But this week we're going over to Dubai Autodrome. As we see, that looks like Lunar Zodiac coasting it round there at the back. I wonder if he's got himself into a bit of mischief. He's really is driving pretty slowly in 15th place at the moment, but Fast AF Gamer is making his way up and about to pass Stoltz, I believe, in the other K-Pax McLaren. But both Stoltz and T. Scott, very good friends, and running in their team colours in the K-Pax McLaren. Yeah, as mentioned, the GT1s are going to be over at Dubai Autodrome's GP circuit this week, and then the LMP2s, which were once again absolutely riddled with stewards' inquiries this week, around the Monza circuit, will be taking on the Nürburgring GP. Unfortunately, we aren't broadcasting that one, but we've got so much action going on inside there. And then into round 3 of the GT3 race, which you're currently watching, of course. We'll be heading over to Indianapolis's road circuit next week, so yet another oval just being brought onto the road course.
And it looks like Blankfire's got in front of iMotorsports.
It does indeed, and you know what? It was actually called by Jesper, who just a couple of moments ago said Blank wasn't leading. I guess it's only a matter of time before he takes the lead, and instantly took it. Yeah, good
Voodoo
call.
Plays. Voodoo Plays.
Let's have a look over to him. I wonder what's gone on with Immortalis, because he's not just lost the lead, he's also lost a bag of time. Let's see if we can see him in the background. Now, the front end of that Ferrari looking pretty clean, so maybe just made a little bit of a mistake. It's easy to do once the tyres warm up, and we see him there getting just a little bit loose coming out of that corner. So yeah, I wonder if Immortalis is starting to suffer with his tyres a little bit.
Well, he was pushing.
He's just going to back off.
He was pushing extremely hard early on, so I wouldn't be so surprised if he's just lit the rear tyres up, got them super hot, and is now sort of paying the price for it, as it were. But can drop from Blankfire, a 2.5 second lead is enough. If he can keep that gap and sort of manage it and maintain it, he should do him well.
As it's worth mentioning that for those of you that aren't maybe too au fait with this circuit, or maybe racing on this particular game with the accelerated tyre wear setting activated, it's less about the tyre wear, it's more about the tyre temperatures where you're going to see mistakes starting to crop up. Obviously tyre wear does play into a factor, especially if you're lighting up the rear wheels or maybe putting too many power slides. That wear factor will definitely pay a cost, but on a circuit like this, it's all about the actual tyre temp. It's not the surface temperature, but the actual tyre temperature. Generally speaking, the soft tyres will be good running up to and around the sort of 95 degrees Celsius, maybe even 100 degrees if you're not pushing it around that value too much, whereas the hards will be good for 100 degrees plus, but not over extended periods of time. When you do, the grip will just fall away, and as you start to get through these high downforce, high speed S sections, as we see Immortalis once again getting very loose on the back end, and you can see it in his lap times. 6 seconds down from Blankfile, the current race leader, and he's really struggling, maybe just pushing that little bit too hard, whereas Blankfile looks an absolute cool cucumber with 26 minutes remaining on this one.
So that's it.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say, it's just some deep breaths from Blankfile now. Just keep his head cool. Log the lap. Still a long way to go. He's by no stretch of the imagination out of the woods, as it were.
No, however, I don't think I think Dr. Potford might be having to keep on his toes here, because BruceLaw is on the charge. Whether or not it's because we've got quite a few KC members watching on the stream at the moment, can see quite a few names popping up on there, but whether or not it's inspired these drivers, Blankfile currently leading the charge, and BruceLaw just making the absolute golden recovery. He's got himself all the way up from 15th up into 5th place, and with 25 minutes remaining, looks as though he might be able to get himself into really challenge Dr. Potford for the podium. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, what's...
Stoltz is in the pit. Sorry to cut you off there. Looks as though some heavy front end damage from Stoltz this time around. Doesn't look as though he's got his bodywork repaired either. Sorry, Alex, you were just about to say?
I was just going to say, although it looks like Bruce has stayed at 34 seconds behind the leaders, so whilst everyone else has fallen away, Bruce has maintained the same gap, as it were. So, although still 30 seconds off, he's not falling behind like everyone else is, which means his lap times must be on par with the leaders. The screen we've got, we can't see that, Murph. That'll be a question for you, but he really is flying.
Well, currently, as you can see, Luke Snipes there just making a bit of a mistake and losing out on quite a fistful of time. I mean, we've raced with BruceLaw for a number of years now. We know the sort of driver he is. He's what I like to refer to as a smart driver. He's not just quick, he knows when to push, when to maybe ease it off, and I think at the moment what we've got is the sort of moderated push that we'll see. He'll be not looking to get those tyres up to temperature and just try and pick away at the split time between him and Dr. Potford at the moment, which if we fling on over, it's currently 6.5 seconds. We'll keep an eye out on that one. We do have, you'll see it rise and fall depending on where the drivers are actually positioned on track, but it's in and around that 6.5 seconds at the moment. BruceLaw will be looking to try and keep himself consistent, keep the tyres on point, and then I wouldn't be surprised if we see quite a big push towards the end of this race if he knows that he's going to be able to potentially take a position. And it looks as though eMotorsports has been able to get his tyres cooled down. It looks as though he's pushing once again. He's really chipping away at the lead of Blankfile at the moment. 1.7 seconds in it, and it was previously around about 2.5, so he's definitely making inroads, and it looks as though Blankfile, to look over to him, might be encountering a little bit of traffic. That's going to help eMotorsports reduce that lead and maybe make a challenge on that first place to try and take it back once again.
I think Blankfile was hoping to counter that AMG on this straight here, a little further back, so he could have the drag all the way down here. That Z4 not known for its blistering straight line speed, but eMotorsports, a good push from him. It's been in a few races with him before, and he's, as you're saying about Bruce driving, sort of smart. eMotorsports almost drives with the blinders on. It's just at 100 all the time, so if the car can do it, then he'll be pushing it. So I expect to see that gap to come down even more in the next couple of laps.
He will be pushing it hard. It's just whether or not we see the mistake happen again where he pushes a little bit too hard for the tyres to then heat up, and then the mistakes start to creep in. He's a very consistent driver in eMotorsports, but it's just when the tyres heat up, he is racing on a pad, so it's a lot harder to feel a lack of grip come through on a pad, and he obviously paid the cost of it previously. He's just encountering a backmarker at the moment. As that backmarker moves away, absolutely clatters a Hot Wheels sign. That might have done some pretty serious damage to, I think it might be
snarling.
Bongo.
Yeah. They're not as soft as they look, them signs.
No, you'll see some of them explode, but that one wasn't. That was a big metal one. I think that's probably going to have ruined the front end of his car, but we'll have to wait and see. eMotorsports is now in that crucial 1.1 second margin. If he can stick with him through the S's, where we'd expect the Ferrari to be a little bit more poised, he might well see that lead drop down even further. That looks as though it's Stoltz, I believe, facing the wrong way in 13th place. Looks as though we've had a retirement or a disconnection as well, which I've missed. Just having a quick flipping through the driver records here just to see who it is, but it's not obvious at the moment. Whoa!
Hey! Oh!
Huge one there, really loses the rear end and clatters Blankfile as well. We'll be waiting for him, but I think it's just a case of the tyres going off. Hopefully not too much damage caused to Blankfile. Let's have a look, see if we can see where that impact was. Front end looks pretty tidy. I wonder whether or not he just caught him in the rear left, I think it would have been.
It's definitely a bit wobbly. Dr. Pofford and Bruce will be rubbing their hands together after that one. If it's that would have caused damage to both of them, at least suspension damage.
The front wing is looking, the front bumper's looking a little bit wobbly, isn't it? That Z4, the rear's where it looks as though it took the brunt of the impact. I think the Ferrari would have been front left-hand side, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think Blankfire wanted any help with his setup. I think he was quite happy with it, but Immortalis happy to lend a hand, obviously.
I think it was just a case of, I mean, it really just came away from him, and potentially those tyre temperatures just peaking up under braking, and I didn't see any puff of smoke. It didn't look as though the wheels locked. It just looked as though there was an instant loss of grip. Grip just plateaued off and then fell away from him, and the rear end overtook the front and just clattered Blankfile there. Blankfile retains the lead, and he is making small gains from Immortalis, so I think Immortalis might have just lost a little bit of grunt here. Maybe done some minor damage to the engine or drive shaft. We'll wait and see. He's making big gains up through the S's once again, but the Ferrari does have the advantage over the over the Z4 through there. Now BruceLaw is right on the back of Dr. Potford, and it looks as though he's getting the move done around the outside. So Dr. Potford, who's held on really well into third place through the majority of this race, just concedes the position, doesn't want to fight with BruceLaw, just allows him to come through. He knows that it's going to be a fruitless fight. He's just going to end up losing time to the pair of them, so Dr. Potford can just allow him to move on through and then push once again to try and hold off Tibby in 5th place. Back over to our leader though, Blankfile and Immortalis. Gap sitting at around about 3/10 at the moment. It does look quite evenly spaced. It looks as though Blankfile is actually pulling away on the straights, which is not what you'd expect with that Ferrari behind. The 488 usually has quite a lot of speed, and that's where we saw the accident. It was very close once again under the braking with the Ferrari. I think he's walking a thin red line, Immortalis, isn't he?
That made me sort of tense up a little bit. That was an accident waiting to happen. Moving it under the braking like that to the inside late is never a smart idea. But he's sticking with it, still trying to apply as much pressure as he can to Blankfile.
You see his rear end goes away from him there. I think he's had a big wobble. I don't know whether or not he collided with the wall, but a huge wobble. And yeah, I think that Ferrari wants it. He's pushing it quite hard to try and stick about the Z4. Just seems to be losing grip from its tyres due to the temperatures, one can assume. And he now falls around about 3 seconds back to Blankfile, which will be a big sigh of relief from Blankfile, I'm sure. BruceLaw, meanwhile, is now 23 seconds behind Immortalis. He's moved his way up into a podium spot, so it's been a phenomenal recovery drive from our Chester driver. Also, Fast AF Gamer has moved his way up into 7th place, and it looks as though Luke Snipes is next on the picking list for that. So he might well have the pace to do it. He's around about 4 seconds a lap quicker, and he's currently 4 seconds down on Luke Snipes, so maybe moving up into 6th place by the end of this current lap.
I've got a feeling if Fast AF can keep on the sort of charge that he's on, I reckon by the end of the race he'll either got past Tibby or definitely be putting the pressure onto Tibby.
Yeah, I would expect him top 5 maybe at this current pace, wouldn't you? 3 to 4 seconds quicker each time around. He's 10 seconds behind Tibby. he might even, you know, unless Dr. Potford manages to get a bit of a wriggle on, he might well take Dr. Potford's 4th place from him. I don't think he's going to be in contention for BruceLaw in 3rd place, but he's going to get himself up into 4th, I think, if he continues at this sort of pace.
It's a little bit misleading on the timing board, but from what can I tell, it looks like eMotorsports is falling back into Bruce's hands at quite an alarming rate. Murphy, you're the one with all the timers in front of us. What's that looking like?
Well, times for me, if we go over to this, he's got, with eMotorsports at the moment, he's just about to lose a whole lot more time as he starts drifting that Ferrari around. But yeah, he was about 3.2 seconds behind Blankfire, which had him around about 21 seconds ahead of BruceLaw. That's now slipped behind after we saw that big drift, but so it's now almost 5 seconds behind Blankfire with 20 seconds lead ahead of BruceLaw. So BruceLaw is on the charge, and eMotorsports is definitely struggling for rear-end grip, it seems. In fact, it looks as though it's grip under braking. Whether or not it's just grip in general, maybe the tyres, as I've been saying far too much, I'm going to stop saying it, the tyres have just got too warm, or whether or not it is some damage sustained with that massive impact with Blankfire. It looks as though Blankfire has gotten away quite lightly from it, which is kind of what we'd expect if he hit the rear end. Although it is a rear-wheel drive Z4, just from experience playing this game, if you get hit by the front or rear quarter of a car and it maybe hits your side panel almost like a T-bone, it doesn't really hurt you as much as if you get punted maybe head-on into the rear. So I think that's maybe been a bit of a bonus, but we now see eMotorsports slipping 5 seconds behind Blankfire, so Blankfire just needs to keep his head on his shoulders and maybe ride this one out to the end in 13 minutes and 40 seconds.
And just for the people who are watching who aren't quite so clued up on why Murphy keeps mentioning tyres, when each time eMotorsports is spinning or locking up or making these mistakes, he's making the problem worse. It's almost like a multiplier. So you spin once, you're more likely to spin again, and then you're more likely to spin again after that, and it just keeps sort of stacking up. And eMotorsports, being the sort of driver that he is, always wanting to push and apply the pressure, as we saw on Blankfire, the car is just not going to keep with him, which is why we've seen him sort of go round as many times as he has, really.
Even into that throw that we've just seen from him then, the car not looking as balanced as it was earlier, so that does gives us the suspicion of some suspension damage maybe towards the rear of the car. It's just not looking sat on its haunches like it was a little bit earlier on when he was chucking that car in, so that's also going to add to that multiplier effect that Alex was speaking of. Now let's not forget that you can be the best driver in the world with the best setup in the world, but if you lose your tyres, that is your contact patch with the road, and without those you're not going anywhere. But as we see from Luna Zodiac, who's had an absolute stinker, I feel for the guy. He's currently in 13th place, so he's managed to get himself up from dead last, but that McLaren, it's going to cost a fortune to repair that. It's battered.
It was looks like Luna has had the same sort of season as he had in season 1. The first couple of races he spent smashing that McLaren off of just about every fence, post, pillar he could find, and it wasn't until the sort of second half of the season that it all sort of came good. So there's maybe some method in the madness for the way he sets his cars up, or just likes to work his mechanics a little bit, but I reckon by the end of the second half of the season we'll start to see that McLaren come good again.
He's not a driver that you'd want to bet on, is he, Lucas? You'd definitely get good odds from him. He's one of the. He's like one of those horses that it only wins the national. You know, it'll only win the big race, and it'll make a few people a lot of money, but the rest of the time it seems to underperform, and you can't really judge it. And then out of nowhere, he'll just pull off an absolute blinder. So maybe just that little bit of consistency, maybe it is just track time.
But fair play to him, as he is driving from Australia, so I think it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I know he wakes up special just to do these races, so before he's even had his coffee, he's been thrown into a race car.
I don't think I'd want a cold shower and then thrown into 45 minutes behind these GT3s. But I mean, he's a great lad. He really rolls up his sleeves, a big contributor to the rest of the community, so it's great to see him. The thing I think that I feel for him most with is he's obviously got pace. We see him almost every single championship that he gets involved in. We see his lap times, they're huge. And it's not just a case of, oh, we can only ever set a hot lap. It's not that at all. We've seen him in races where, you know, he's doing it lap after lap after lap after lap. It just seems to be that every now and again he'll just have a bit of mischief, get himself really acquainted with a wall, and then it just seems to go from bad to worse.
It's never a tap.
Snowballs. Yeah, it's never a tap.
If he's going to do it, he's going to do it big. And I've got time for that.
So it looks as though a little bit further down the running order, we've got a bit of action going on with Luke Snipes. Luke Snipes looks as though he's managing to get himself back on track in that Porsche, and he's chasing back Tibby, which this is looking to be a pretty close fought contest in the championship, really. Luke Snipes 7th in the championship, Tibby currently 4th in the championship, but these drivers look as though they're pretty well matched as we see Luke taking over there.
It looked like Tibby just sort of bit the wall where Giacomo was having problems. That long right hand, I think it's turned 14 to 18. So obviously he's having a little bit of trouble now. Fast AF has taken both their spots away and got up to 5th, so he's going to be hunting down Dr. Potford now. But again, bit of a silent killer as is Luke. Keeps his nose clean. We've seen him have a few spins, but nothing awful. There's not hit anything. It's just sort of flat spotted a few tyres, really. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it. And it's in this section that he's coming into now. So hopefully now we're watching him, he's got it right.
So the lesson he's learned there, and we can hear big lift-offs. So I'll bring up the speedo so that we can have a look at just how he's balancing that throttle, and you can see really ginger. We're not seeing much full throttle action up until he knows that he can use it, and that's exactly what you want, basically. No point touching that throttle unless you know that you can use it. Off and ons are only good when you're braking traction. But yeah, you know what? I've got my own grievances with turns 17 and 18. That big right-hander. I've had some great races lost through there. And this is where my experience with tyre temperatures comes in. So I know it wasn't, there was no damage, zero damage. All that had happened is my tyre temps have just got that little bit too high, and where I've been able to absolutely nail it round those two right-handers. Took the same approach, hadn't noticed that the tyres had got warm, and all of a sudden you smash into the wall. So yeah, it's so easy to do.
It's normally here in Silverstone that I find it's the curbs that are the assassins for me. I seem to hit them and they catapult me into a different part of the track, normally against my will. And I think it's especially in this last section here that Luke's now coming into. If you hit these curbs the wrong way round, they could just take the car away from you completely, and you almost become just a passenger going straight to the scene of the accident.
So back over to blank file, just as Alex had mentioned. Luke going through on a particular section of the course. I seem to move away from it, so apologies for that, Alex. But yeah, just having a look over blank file. So he's just is that turn 1 or is it turn 11 that he's just come through?
That was 11.
That is 11. So he's got 4.5 seconds to Immortalis. Immortalis has made a little bit of time up for him. You can see him there 0.2 quicker that last time around, and we can actually see him just in the distance there, and that is also I know it's a back marker behind. It looks as though Immortalis is pretty safe from BruceLaw. BruceLaw is now around about 22, 23 seconds behind Immortalis. Immortalis has just lost a little bit more time as he lost his rear end again. I think he is, because he's just being challenged by a back marker, and we've seen him drop a second. So Immortalis is definitely not out of the woods yet. He's pushing that Ferrari really hard. 488 looking absolutely battered on almost every panel. Not again, not a very cheap car to replace the panels for. Luckily, it's a virtual world and nobody pays nothing. So looks as though the Fast AF Gamer has just moved ahead of Dr. Potford. We did predict it. Looks as though it's happening on lap 18 here. So Fast AF Gamer moves up to 4th place. He was previously down in 15th when we still had 15 on the grid. in 50th place after contact with BruceLaw. So now BruceLaw and Fast AF Gamer obviously had bags of pace, and it's almost a bit of a shame because it shows you what could have been. These guys have been able to get through almost all of the other pack. The only two drivers remaining ahead of them are the ones that have had least amount of damage and most amount of pace. But Fast AF Gamer is hooning at the moment. 2 minutes and 7 seconds being set by him the last time around. Let's have a look what his lap times are this time. He comes across the line now, and it's 2 minutes and 8.6, so he's still going pretty quick compared to the rest of the pack. Let's have a look at the timing boards at the moment. So the fastest lap currently set by Fast AF Gamer. So it looks as though Fast AF Gamer is currently in line to pick up both bonus points from the race for pole position on fastest lap. So he has previously set a 2 minute 6.097, and that is much quicker than the rest of the drivers out there. And we knew he had it in him. He definitely showed that sort of pace in qualification, so it doesn't really surprise me. I think the only thing that has surprised me is the contact with BruceLaw at the early stages, but I did expect eMotorsports to have a good run at this one. Maybe we were ignorant to miss out Blank File. I mean, we knew his record coming into this championship. We know how well he's done in other community races, and he actually holds more championship titles, I believe, than BruceLaw by almost triple. So he's definitely got the competency, and it seems, although he's a new addition, really nice addition to the community, very friendly guy, and looks as though he's going to be celebrating his first Flux Motorsport victory in 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
And well deserved as well. What a great effort if he could just hang on to it for the last 2, maybe 3 laps if he's particularly sharp. Did well to recover from that contact with eMotorsports, and has just kept his head cool, logged the laps. Great effort.
It really is. Not too sure whereabouts he's from. I wouldn't like to hazard a guess based on his accent, but it's great to see the diverse mix that we've got at the moment. Got plenty of, I'm going to say international drivers, us being from the UK, but plenty of international drivers from pretty much every corner of the globe now, and all brought together with a similar love for clean, fair motorsport, sim racing. And it's good to see that we're now getting the mixture in lobbies where it's getting really hard to predict. I don't think we've been right in the predictions so far this season in any of them. So, I mean, that it maybe speaks for our knowledge, but I think it more speaks for the range of talent that we've now got within the community and within each of the championships. So it's great to see. And of course, if you're watching this and you want to get involved in some of this community action, it is currently based around the PlayStation 4, and predominantly all of our championships are on Project Cars 2, but we are looking to expand this. For more information, just head on over to www.fluxmotorsport.com, and in the top right hand side of the screen you'll find the link to join our Discord from there. And of course, if you want to keep up to date and maybe don't want to join the community but want to know what's going on and which races to expect, then you can follow us on all social media outlets in the form of Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, with our old mate Jack Demenzies running that one, who's currently watching on the stream, I do believe. Jesper has just popped in. Blank File is the 17 times champion in curb clippers, so that shows the competency, and we've raced with a lot of these guys over the years from the KC group, and they're not slow, are they, mate? So
no.
to be a 17-time champion, it pretty much shows the sort of calibre of driver that we've got in Blank File, and it certainly showed today. 6.3 seconds is current lead ahead of eMotorsports, and that is growing even more. Looks as though he's throwing the hammer down a little bit into what will be the final lap of the race here at the Circuit of the Americas. Also, a bit of information from Blank File. He's also a Belgian driver, And I'm so glad that I didn't guess his nationality. I wouldn't have been too far off, but it would have been enough to cause offence. So,
just to jump in, sorry Murph, it looks like Fast AF has closed the gap to Bruce. I don't think he's going to make it unless they get one extra lap and something drastic happens. But he's only sitting, what's that, 5 seconds off now?
He's definitely not going to get an extra lap. But let's have a little look over to BruceLaw. Looks as though his nose is clean, so I don't think there's any damage to that SLS. I've got to say, I think I prefer the look of that SLS over the AMG.
It looks a bit slimmer, a bit trimmer. It looks more like a way. I mean, the AMG to me looks like an absolute battleship, and it turns like one too. This looks like more of a race car in my eyes.
But yeah, no obvious damage, and Fast AF Gamer 5 seconds behind at the moment, so I think that is going to be that. Let's have a look over to our race leader. He's just coming through the right-handers that have been so treacherous for quite a few drivers. It looks as though Stoltz and T-Scott, the Team McLaren guys in the K-Packs, and they're the two drivers that we've lost. We haven't just lost them, we lost them a little bit earlier on, but those two calling it quits and going to register 0 points in this one. But the eyes are on Blankfile. He's got a back marker right up his chuff, but he's done enough for the race victory, and what a fine victory it is as well. Blankfile takes the win. eMotorsports is just come around the final bend. He's going to do enough for second place, so good drive from him. And BruceLaw and Fast AF, I mean, we've spoken about these over the last couple of seasons here at Flux Motorsport. They're almost the mainstay drivers that we have in our midst, but what a drive from those two to get through the pack and still only be maybe 25 seconds behind the leader. It's a great run from them, and great run from Fast AF Gamer as well. He's going to get the 2 bonus points, although he only finished in 4th place. So that, I think, will put him even on points with BruceLaw come the end of this one. I think the difference between 3rd and 4th place is separated by 2 points, so he's going to be even on points at the end once all of his bonuses are jotted up. Dr. Potford comes across the line. Great run from him. He is currently 2nd in the championship, so 5th place is going to see him pretty good. And Luke Snipes as well. We've mentioned him a few times on the stream tonight. Done really well in that Porsche. Brings it home above Tibby in the end to take home 6th place. Maybe looks as though he came across the line. I think he was just behind Blankfile actually. His 7th is secured along with Snarling Bongo in 8th and Linga Bazinga in 9th. Disappointing run from the Dutch guys there today. I think they've maybe just got roped up in too much hassle. But here is the final running order, and curious as well that Fast AF Gamer actually had a pit stop in all of that as well, potentially to repair some damage. So Blankfile takes his first victory. The relatively new Belgian driver to Flux Motorsport takes his first victory in a Flux Motorsport Championship. eMotorsports with a great drive for 2nd. Then BruceLaw and Fast AF Gamer both recovered after very early contact to secure 3rd and 4th place respectively. And then Dr. Potford in 5th, followed by Luke Snipes and Tibby in 7th place. Snarling Bongo in 8th with his flatmate alongside him in 9th place. And then Survivor in 10th. Quite a good showing from the young American to get him up there. Giacomo ended up falling down at the early stages of the race, really. Does enough for 11th in the end, ahead of Luna Zodiac. And then Old Smokey retired along with Stoltz and T. Scott in the end. So that pretty much concludes everything that we've got to offer in week 2 here at Flux Motorsport's 2nd season. As ever, thank you very much for joining me in the commentary booth, Alex. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, mate. I look forward to next week.
Yeah, and do be sure to join in next week. Keep your eye on the weather report on Saturday afternoon. We are going to be live at Indianapolis, live from 8 o'clock with both myself and Alex for that one. And as I mentioned earlier on, you'll be able to join me on Tuesday night for the Touring Cars live at 8 p.m. UK time. And wherever you're watching it, please just give it a Google to make sure that you're tuning in at the right time, or even more convenient, do us a favour and hit a subscribe button onto the channel just below your screen to make sure that you don't miss any of the action. That's been all from myself. I've been your host for the evening, Murphy, and enjoy your week ahead. We'll get the standings up very shortly just to see what this race has brought, but plenty of action here from the Circuit of the Americas. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Take care and have a good week.